Yeah.
What if I shoot you right now? You think it'd be God's plan?
What are you doing?
You're on TikTok, aren't you? You're killing me with that.
You're like literally one of the most respectful, balanced, fair-minded people, more so than many even atheists.
Without saints and deities, you know what I mean?
I happen to be a
Buddhist.
The task would be to prove you wrong. Okay, ready?
Yeah, please.
Who made God?
If I asked you
Yes.
a counter question,
Okay.
that if the baker baked the bread, who baked the baker? You would think I'm crazy. The reason is that we ask questions of people and things according to their attributes and characteristics. For example, Richard Dawkins has presented an infinite regress. We keep asking who made that, who made that, who made that. But if the being at the end of all of that, the cause of all causes, the prime mover itself is infinite, then we wouldn't ask that question anymore. So if you have to ask a question about who made God, then that entity is not God. Because God, as postulated by all major faiths, is an entity that has no beginning. So to ask where that beginning came from itself is irrational.
Okay. You could either believe that the chicken came first or the egg came first, right?
Okay, but these are both physical things that have beginnings. So we're talking about an entity that has no beginning definitionally. And that's why it's the equivalent of asking if the baker baked the bread, who baked the baker? You'd say, well, no one baked the baker because a baker isn't baked. And I'd say, why are you asking a different question down the chain of contingent events? And you say, well, the nature of the baker is different. The bread is different. So the difference between a baker and the bread is infinitesimal compared to the difference between the creation and the creator itself. And it must need be because it must be outside of physical time and space and matter as we understand it.
Right.
So, very respectfully submitted, of course.
I could appreciate that part of it being outside of rational thought. So
But
either way, you have to put your faith in something, right?
I agree. But you know, Islam, for example, says that faith isn't just blindly believing something for which there's no evidence at all.
Right.
So Islam says you're right. Our rationality, study of science should lead us to the fact that there should be something, but only personal experience,
Right.
measurable, observable, repeatable, should verify whether there is a God or not.
You have to come to a logical conclusion that there is something beyond rationality that has made us.
Yeah. I mean, but that is a logical conclusion.
I suppose.
I do have an atheist friend, and her main point was that there's no proof, like empirical proof of a God, which I think that point was a very strong point.
The materialists, people who say there's only this physical world, they're going to be like, there's no evidence for God. And you want people to believe in basically fairy tales. Have you ever heard a response to that, by the way, before we come to you? Like, why is there no empirical proof for God, or show me the empirical? Have you ever heard a powerful response from the believer's side?
Not really. I think it's just always been very like surface level discussion, and very like if they say there's no proof, people have just been like, okay, like you believe what you believe. I've never been in discussion that has been like that deep before.
Empirical proof refers to things that are physical in the material world. Who's the person in your life that loves you the most?
My parents.
Your parents. Show me empirical proof that your parents love you.
Not possible.
Not possible. Yet you know absolutely, even more than you know that the world goes round, because you've only heard that, you haven't seen it with your own eyes, that your parents love you. The most powerful, most compelling realities that are way beyond just the physical, they're beyond empirical proof. And there's a seed for that in our heart. So that's one of the responses I usually give. I don't know, what do you think?
That kind of changes my mind a little bit. Very interesting take.
Yeah, that's a good response, I'd say.
When the world is so perfect the way it is, how there must be some sort of higher power that has made this world. You know, it's
So atheists quote evolution. They're like, yeah, there's millions of years for random mutations to take place. What do you say? Like, have you ever heard a good response to that?
Not really.
On the spine of a DNA helix is a fully coded language. So the fact that there's an intelligible language, number one, and then there are mechanisms within the DNA helix that interprets that language. Well, we have to say if there's a language, and there has to be someone who is linguistic behind it. In order to formulate a language, you guys are what? Training to become what? Software engineers, right? Can you imagine randomness creating entire softwares that code languages? In order to have a language, you have to have a linguistic God. You have to have a creative force behind it. So I always push back very respectfully, say that's not true. It's on you to actually demonstrate how it's possible that non-intelligence created something intelligible. What do you think?
Well, honestly, I agree. As simple as that.
you raise a good point, because you can't just randomly write a program or write software.
No, I like your response. I agree with it.
That's a good example.
Historically, I have seen this argument being used to explain things that we couldn't previously explain. You know, how is it that all the 7 seas were created? How is it that these mountains were made so perfect? And now we have geological and scientific explanations for them. I believe that if history is of any indicator, our current incomplete knowledge of how the genetic structure was formed, we may use a God to explain it now, but in 1,000 years, who knows what further understandings we will have just building off of past events.
Anyone who tries to use God of the gaps and say, we can't understand this, therefore God, that's not what I meant to say, and I think that's not a fair argument. I agree. I totally nod along with my atheist brothers and sisters in humanity who say this. That's not fair. What I'm humbly submitting is, if there's a house or there's a structure, let's say the building behind us, if we're able to get every single scientist involved in talking about every physical, material aspect of this building to explain all of the constituents of the construction, it does not take away the need for an intelligent designer and an architect. It does not take away the need for intelligence to have put this together. We may understand subatomic particles more than we understand the atom in 100 years. I have no problem with that, but that does not take away the blank wall of explaining the intellect that is required to start and to maintain all of the intelligence that we see. That's what I meant.
I see. That makes it a lot more clearer now. And I definitely think that is the main argument. That is the reason I'm not a complete atheist. I am fully open to the idea of a God.
Don't you think it makes sense that if there is intelligence required to replicate everything, that it does make sense to postulate that there may very well be a creative intelligence force?
Absolutely. I think that this is definitely grounds for being open to the idea of a God. However, I do think there needs to be more further substantial, tangible evidence because people have waged so many wars. People have oppressed so many others in the name of this religion.
Anyone who tries to wage violence in the name of Islam is going exactly against what the Prophet Muhammad taught. And then at the same time, there's Stalin, who killed 20 million people, who was highly atheistic, was inspired by Karl Marx's manifesto. And so it's not that it's religion, it's any philosophy. People will weaponize any philosophy.
That's true. I fully recognize my bias in that statement. It's not just religion that wages all of these wars. I think the main issue I'm having, though, is that people often use what we cannot say for sure to discredit what others are saying, what they also can't say for sure.
I agree. That's not fair.
Yeah, that is not fair.
The method to know God should be something that all people of all time, no matter what level of intellect, no matter what level of education, access to wealth, etc., knowledge, should have. And what we say is, look, ask God yourself. We each should ask God ourselves that, oh God, if you are there, you should tell me. You should make yourself known. And this is what all major faiths have always said, that if God is there and a person sincerely searches, then he should make himself known, and he should make himself known even more emphatically than we know other things. Islam says don't remain suspended in the unknown. So this is kind of what we're out here talking about, and I really appreciate your time. This has been one of my favorite conversations.
Hey guys, I just met these wonderful people. They're here to spark some truly amazing and profoundly life-changing conversations. So no matter what you believe in, I do believe that anyone can benefit from this type of open discussion. So if you enjoyed this, please like and subscribe.